Education Officer, Mrs. Connie George, Principal of the Elmore Stout High School, Mr. Wade Tobin, representatives of the Claudia Creaky Educational Center, Moderator, Mr. Cromwell Smith, adjudicators, auditors, timekeepers, technical assistants, teachers, parents, students, friends, audience members, supporters. Welcome to this evening's proceedings with the inter-secondary school debate. At this time, we want to say a very, very special, warm welcome to our supporters who traveled from Anegada and spent the day to be here with us this evening.
Now we are ready for the debate. I now call on the proposition's first speaker, Ms. Jeanne Jeffords, to present its case.
It's a danger to you, it's a danger to me. It has become a weapon, taking the lives of our youths. How long will this obviously deleterious mode of transportation continue to be used in our islands before we do something about it? What are we waiting for? Just one more injury? Just one more accident? Or maybe just one more death? Ladies, gentlemen, officials, good evening. My colleague and I are confident. We have no fear that you too, after examining the irrefutable evidence, will join us in our conviction that scooters and motorbikes should be banned in the Virgin Islands. I will, for the purposes of this discourse, define the key terms of the moot. According to scooterfocus.com, a scooter is defined as a style of two-wheeled motor vehicle, traditionally characterized by a step-through frame, wheels less than 16 inches in diameter, and an engine located below the rider and to the rear. A motorbike is defined by the World English Dictionary as a two-wheeled vehicle having a stronger frame than a bicycle that is driven by a petrol engine, usually with a capacity of between 125 cc's and 1,000 cc's. According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, banned means to prohibit, especially by legal means. The Virgin Islands is a British overseas territory in the Eastern Caribbean, which consists of the principal islands, Tortola, Virgin Gorda, Anegada, and Just Van Dyke. Thus, my colleague and I stand before you to propose that two-wheeled motor vehicles should be prohibited on the roads of Tortola, Virgin Gorda, Anegada, Just Van Dyke, and the other inhabited islands of the British overseas territory known as the Virgin Islands. Throughout this discourse, I will direct your focus to the disregard scooter drivers have for traffic laws and show how this has led to many accidents. Additionally, I will explain how road conditions of the Virgin Islands are not ideal for these vehicles and describe the negative impact of these vehicles, environmental impact of these vehicles. My seconder will address the impact the scooters and motorbikes have and will have on our quality of life. One day, you set off on your daily commute in your red Suzuki Grand Vitara. You are a responsible driver. On your journey to work, you make sure you're within the speed limit and double-check that your seatbelt is securely fastened. Your dashboard indicates your airbag is working and your anti-lock braking system is functioning properly. Eventually, you end up on Waterfront Drive, and there, out in the distance, you spot John Doe on a scooter. You notice that he is not wearing a helmet. Aside from that, he is weaving through traffic. Then you see him run the red light. Oh no, he's headed right towards you. What should you do? What is there to do? Your mind races. You take evasive action and the danger passes. This time, as your heart rate slows, you wonder, what are we waiting for? How many more will be hurt before we take action? Scooters and motorcycles should be banned in the Virgin Islands. Scooter and motorcycle drivers are often cited for breaking various traffic laws. According to Virgin Islands News Online, operations by officers of the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force within the last 2 months has resulted in the seizure of 10 cycles, 5 oversized motorbikes, and 5 scooters for not being licensed, insured, and registered. None of the scooter riders were, at the time of the seizure, wearing helmets. The acting superintendent of police noted that the lack of necessary credentials to operate a cycle will result in the seizure of that cycle. However, the lack of a helmet only merits a ticket and a fine. Virgin Island law requires operators of scooters or cycles to be 16 years or older and have a valid motorcycle permit or Class M VI driver's license. 16 years old, moderator. These drivers are not mature enough for such a responsibility and so take risks that endanger lives, theirs and others. Studies show that younger drivers are more likely to get in accidents. The American Psychological Association embraces a recent research on the adolescent brain, which indicates the juvenile brain is still maturing in the teen years, and reasoning and judgment are developing well into the early to mid-20s. Experts say that at ages 16 and 17, the very age at which one can qualify for a license to operate a scooter in the Virgin Islands, the juvenile brain is characterized as impulsive, aggressive, emotionally volatile, likely to take risks, reactive to stress, vulnerable to peer pressure, and likely to overlook alternative courses of action. What are we waiting for? Our law also requires that helmets be worn by both riders and passengers when a cycle is in operation, and strongly advises that cyclists wear proper safety gear to prevent injury to exposed skin. Yet, as stated by BVI Platinum News, the commissioner shared that there were 4 fatalities in the last 3 years involving bikes, starting on March 28, 2011. Mr. Morris stated that of all the fatalities, only 1 was wearing a helmet. And it's not just here. According to EGNOSnyder.com, in Pennsylvania, in 2011, 49% of fatal accident riders were not wearing helmets. Moderator, these fatalities are no secret, as they are widely published in the news. Yet, on any given day, we can spot many scooter and motorcycle riders speeding through Road Town, racing through the valley, still without the most basic protective gear, helmets. What are we waiting for? Scooter and motorcycle riders have already proven that all the warnings in the world won't make them wear the helmets that can save their lives. Scooters and motorcycles should be banned in the Virgin Islands. As reported by Vino, advocates wish to form a non-profit organization to promote scooter and motorcycle safety. Admirable. They even acknowledge the need for riders to take responsibility for their actions. Good. Here's where things get confusing. They are, and I quote, most intent on advocating for the legislation of motorcycles larger than the current 125cc limit. Have they seen the roads in the Virgin Islands that my parents drive on? Have they considered that experienced drivers in stable, enclosed four-wheeled vehicles face many challenges on our steep, winding, narrow roads? Sharp turns, hidden driveways, potholes, the absence of lane markings, and alternating concrete and asphalt surfaces are typical of the infrastructure of our roadways. These are not ideal conditions for scooters and motorcycles. What are we waiting for? These vehicles should be banned in the Virgin Islands. Advocates will try to convince us that these vehicles can save our environment because they are much more fuel efficient than cars. This point, while at first seeming valid, must be investigated closely, as the popular science show Mythbusters did in 2011. They found that cycles were 28% more fuel efficient than cars, emitting 30% less carbon dioxide. But they emitted far more smog-forming hydrocarbons and oxides of nitrogen, as well as carbon monoxide. Motorcycles emit 416% more hydrocarbons, 3,020% more oxides of nitrogen, and 8,065% more carbon monoxide. The conclusion, motorcycles are far worse for the environment than cars. So let's review. Disregarded traffic laws, high accident rates, hazardous road conditions. Oh, let's not forget harmful environmental impact. Tell me again, why would we allow these vehicles on our roads? It is clear that they do much more harm than good. What are we waiting for? Scooters and motorcycles should be banned in the Virgin Islands.
And I'll call on the opposition's first speaker, Mr. Lawrence Curtin Whitley, to present his case.
We interrupt our regular programming to bring you breaking news. This is Dan Lewis of radio station WBBI. Atlantis Flight 119 carrying the Virgin Islands Prime Minister and opposition leader Honorable Mark Douglas crashed into Mount Taj. Mount Taj is located in the remote area of Guanadana and will take several hours before our news crew is able to get on the ground. At this time, there are no known survivors. Please stay tuned. We will bring you updates as soon as they are available. Again, Atlantis Flight 119 has crashed into Mount Taj. Mr. Moderator, esteemed judges, my worthy opponents, ladies and gentlemen, my colleague, good evening. Tonight, my colleague and I stand before you to oppose the scooters and motorbikes should be banned in the Virgin Islands. In order to remove any ambiguity, let me define some keywords. A scooter, as defined by an Oxford English Dictionary, is a light two-wheeled open motor vehicle on which the driver sits over an enclosed engine with feet resting on a floorboard. A motorbike or motorcycle is defined as a two-wheel vehicle that is powered by a motor and has no pedals. The Oxford English Dictionary defines the term banned as officially or legally prohibited. The moot paraphrase, as we propose to argue it, is two-wheeled motorized vehicles should not be officially or legally prohibited in the Virgin Islands. Mr. Moderator, my colleague and I plan to use 4 main points. 1, scooters are modes of transportation. 2, scooters are environmentally friendlier than other modes of transportation. 3, scooters are economical. And 4, education and enforcement are key components to safe cycle riding. My colleague will speak on the 3rd and 4th points, while I speak on the first 2. Here in the Virgin Islands, we have many different modes of terrestrial transportation. Most households have vehicles such as cars, SUVs, jeeps, and pickups. Scooters and motorbikes, as a mode of transportation, can get one from point A to B relatively quickly. And because of their smaller size, it is easier to maneuver through traffic and find parking, especially in areas such as Road Town. Mr. Moderator, I have heard the stories about individuals driving up and down looking for a parking spot, and eventually parking on the sidewalk, crosswalk, or even double parking. Imagine the frustration after spending precious time hunting for a parking space, only to receive a parking ticket for one's troubles. Scooters and motorbikes take up less space, and that, Mr. Moderator, in a place like Road Town, would indeed be a blessing. Not only can scooters and motorbikes be used by private citizens as they go about their daily routine, but they can also be used by businesses to deliver small packages, mail, or even meals. Scooters and motorbikes are also used by many visitors to our shows to get around, as evidenced by the number of scooter rental businesses springing up. In the Setting Point area of Anegada, within a 20-yard radius, there are 3 scooter rental businesses. Mr. Moderator, unfortunately, accidents happen. At the beginning of my discourse, I mentioned the fictitious Atlantis Flight 119, but that may not be that far off. If I were to enumerate the number of vehicular, maritime, and aviation accidents that take place on planet Earth, we would be here until next week. One only has to turn on the radio or television or even go online, yet I have heard no outcall or cries for a ban on vehicles. Have you heard of any? A South Korean ferry recently capsized, killing over 100 and with scores still missing. Yet I have heard no call for a ban on ships or boats. We too have had have had our share of tragedies, as over the years we have lost several young men to boating accidents here in our lovely waters. Have they banned boats? No. We all listened for weeks as news media around the world pondered the fate of Malaysian Flight 370. Yet there has been no outcry or call for a ban on aircraft. Why is this? Didn't hundreds perish? Mr. Moderator, scooters and motorbikes are simply another means of transportation, and as such should remain legal here in the British Virgin Islands. As we become more attuned to our role on this planet, we should become more concerned about the amount of emissions we are putting into the atmosphere. Mr. Moderator, we have young adults who work or attend college and need to be mobile without waiting for mommy or daddy to pick them up and drop them off wherever they have to go. I am sure you know households where you may have 4 persons, each with their own vehicle. Do you know what that does to our natural environment? Wouldn't it be healthier for the environment to let the younger ones use scooters and motorbikes as their mode of transportation? Vehicular emissions have negative effects not only on the natural environment, but on our health as well. Some of the pollutants found in emissions are hydrocarbons, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, and soot. It has been found that carbon monoxide reduces the ability of the blood to transport oxygen, and overexposure to this gas can be fatal. Nitrogen oxides destroy the resistance to respiratory infections, and soot has been linked to not only respiratory diseases, but to some cancers as well. Shouldn't we do all in our power to decrease these harmful effects? Mr. Moderator, scooters produce fewer greenhouse gases, gases which have been principally responsible for climate change. The amount of carbon monoxide, for example, is directly proportional to the amount of gas burned. Therefore, a 2-wheel vehicle, such as a scooter, contributes far less carbon monoxide than a 4-wheel vehicle, and thus making it more environmentally friendly. If we look, Mr. Moderator, at the amount of materials used in the construction of a scooter versus a car, we will definitely see that the scooter produces a much smaller carbon footprint. If we care about the environment, and we should, does it make sense to ban scooters and motorbikes? If we ban scooters and motorbikes, why not ban cars as well? After all, they are some of the greatest contributors to pollution of our environment. William Arthur Ward said, and I quote, "The pessimist complains about the wind. The optimist expects it to change. The realist adjusts the sails." End of quote. Mr. Moderator, let us not be pessimists and complain about scooters and motorbikes being bad. Let's be real and look towards adjusting our thinking. Let's carefully examine the issues, pros and cons, and I'm sure that by the end of this evening, you too will come to the conclusion that the Virgin Islands should not ban scooters and motorbikes. Mr. Moderator, I humbly submit that banning scooters and motorbikes is not the answer. Thank you.
I now call the second speaker of the proposition, Ms. Zara Corian.
Everyone pays when a motorcycle rider is severely injured. You can talk about freedom of choice, but when other people have to pay for the consequences of that choice, then it's not freedom of choice at all. James Champagne, former Executive Director, Louisiana Highway Safety Commission. Our lovely Virgin Islands, a veritable paradise with our sun-drenched days and peaceful moonlit nights. The cooing of the turtle dove is music for the soul. But wait, a vicious roar rips through the stillness, growing ominously louder as the beast approaches. What threatens our tranquility? It's a scooter. It's a motorbike. Scooters and motorcycles should be banned in the Virgin Islands. They are destroying our very way of life. Moderator, I know that you may think I am being dramatic, but don't be too hasty in your judgment. My teammate has established the disturbing rates of scooter and motorcycle accidents and their contribution to pollution. Now, let's take a personal look at how these vehicles negatively affect the quality of our lives, to remove any remaining doubts that scooters and motorbikes should be banned in the Virgin Islands. Advocates of these bikes will go on and on about freedom. Our youth should be free to travel, free to go from point A to point B without having to depend on mommy and daddy, and so on and so forth. But what is freedom? What are the boundaries of freedom? What if their freedom causes harm to others and to themselves? Something that we just need to limit and regulate the use of these bikes. That we don't need to place an outright ban on these vehicles. In the Virgin Islands, we have banned the use, sale, and possession of certain drugs. To maintain the society that we have built and to guard against harm both to others and to users, we ban marijuana, cocaine, and many more substances. We do not limit the use of or regulate the use of these clearly harmful substances. We ban them, full stop. Motorcycles and scooters are clearly harmful. They cause irreparable damage. They should be prohibited. One prevalent complaint about these bikes is that they shatter the peace of our tropical nights. The wind through the trees lulls us to sleep. But moderator, our nights are often invaded at 2 or 3 a.m. by the noise pollution of these bikes. NoiseOff.com defines noise pollution as, quote, unwanted human-created sound that has the effect of being annoying, distracting, painful, or physically harmful, unquote. The World Health Organization, United Nations, and copious medical journals document noise pollution's injurious effects, including hearing loss, fatigue, hostility, depression, muscle tension, elevated blood pressure, and spikes in cardiorespiratory rates, to name a few. Can you believe many advocates of these bikes claim that the loud exhaust systems serve as a safety device? They claim that the loud exhaust systems save lives by attracting the attention of other motorists on the road. How ridiculous, how dangerous. The low-frequency, non-directional loud sound of a motorcycle's exhaust system does nothing to help other drivers accurately assess a bike's position until it is too late. Now, let's look at the crafty plot and motorcycle manufacturers' profit, hand over fist, casting aside concerns for the young riders and their communities. First, they market these bikes as cheap, fuel-efficient means of transportation. Then, they make sure that these bikes are easily adaptable. And then some of those same manufacturers sell the kits to add dazzling lights or illegal exhaust systems for huge profits. In fact, Ken Schmidt, a former Harley-Davidson executive, in a business conference speech said, and I quote, "Noise is good. Noise is the foundation of your business," unquote. They know that the young people who ride these bikes are fascinated by the loud and flashy, and these businesses enjoy great financial success as a direct result. They care about the bottom line, dollars and cents. They don't care about the young people of the Virgin Islands. They don't care about the Virgin Islands community. But since we care about our people, we stand firm that motorcycles and scooters should be banned in the Virgin Islands, full stop. These vehicles also put a strain on our community. Scooters and motorbikes have such high accident rates that Caribbean Insurance Limited does not even offer them comprehensive coverage. The Centers for Disease Control found that the economic burden of motorcycle accidents in 1 year totaled $12 billion, costs paid by the public due to higher insurance premiums and taxes and lost revenue. In the Virgin Islands, when a scooter or motorcycle accident occurs, whether the victims have insurance or not, services must be provided. Who will pay the ambulance bill? Who will pay the emergency room cost? Who will bear the burden of lost man-hours? Who will console the families? We will. All of us will. Strictly regulating these vehicles is not the answer. Riders have shown such a disregard of the law that this would be completely pointless. They, in the face of many warnings, still refuse to wear helmets, refuse to obey the traffic laws, and ride bikes larger than the legal limit, which are registered outside of the Virgin Islands. Raising the age limit at which a person can operate this type of vehicle is not the answer. Raising the age limit won't change the mountainous geography of our islands, which necessitate narrow, steep, sinuous roads. Sadly, the only answer is staring us in the face. We must ban scooters and motorbikes in the Virgin Islands. I thank you.
And I now call the opposition second speaker, Mr. Rondell Smith to the lectern.
Mr. Moderator, honorable judges, esteemed opponents, my colleague, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My colleague spoke to you about scooters and motorbikes being a mode of transportation. He also told you that they are more environmentally friendly than other terrestrial vehicles. My argument will speak to the financial cost as well as to education and enforcement. Let me paint you a picture. I graduated from high school and enrolled at the H. Lavity Stout Community College. I also work part-time since I have to pay rent and utilities. I live in West End. I am not the only child of my parents, and even though I am old enough to obtain a driver's license, my finances will not allow me to purchase a used vehicle for $7,500, pay insurance, and fill up the tank every week. Filling up the tank weekly may cost approximately $85, depending on which gas station I use. I can, however, purchase a scooter for $1,200, pay insurance, and fill up twice per week while working part-time and attending classes. The cost of my fuel may be $30, again depending on which gas station I use. Mr. Moderator, in these economic hard times, should we not teach our young people sound financial principles? As a young person working to become successful in today's society, why should I expend a great deal of money on an automobile that will do the same things that a scooter can do for me? You may say that the scooter or motorbike is small and not designed for carrying groceries or a lot of bulky items. But Mr. Moderator, the older people have a saying that is true. Cut your garment according to your cloth. As a single person, I don't have a lot of needs. I can get to and from college and work using a scooter or motorbike and save my money to invest in property. That, Mr. Moderator, makes far more sense to me. Mr. Moderator, I submit to you that if one is given the proper education and training and the laws that are currently in place were strictly enforced, we would not have to read the headlines that screams that another young man has lost his life in a scooter accident. In order to drive a motor vehicle, one attends a driving school, then takes several tests before a license is issued. Currently, there is no driving school for persons wishing to obtain a license for a scooter or motorbike. Even though a license is given, and may I add at a younger age than a license for a motor vehicle, is the person educated on how to properly handle a scooter or motorbike? Mr. Moderator, one may argue that common sense dictates that the bike rider should know better than weaving in and out of traffic, running red lights, and a myriad of silly things that they do. But I submit that common sense may not be so common. Therefore, formal driver's education should be mandatory. We often hear the phrase, "who don't hear will feel." But Mr. Moderator, we always assume that that phrase is meant for someone else, never ourselves. According to Mr. Adrian da Costa, statistician within the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, there was a total of 1,362 accidents in 2010, of which 41 were scooters and motorbikes. That represents only 3% of recorded accidents. I repeat, Mr. Moderator, only 3%. In 2011, the number of motorbikes and scooter accidents was 3.9% of all recorded accidents. For the years 2012 and 2013, the recorded scooter and motorbike accidents continued to remain less than 5% of recorded traffic accidents. Of the 5 recorded traffic fatalities of 2012, only 1 was attributed to scooters or motorbikes. It is plain to see that vehicles of all types are involved in accidents on our roads. So why are scooters and motorbikes being targeted? I submit that the fault often lies with the rider or person in control. So let us work on educating prospective motorbike and scooter riders and say no to a ban. Mr. Moderator, George Bernard Shaw said, and I quote, "We are made wise not by the recollection of our past, but by the responsibility of our future." End of quote. I am convinced that as wise people, we will learn from our past, but focus on our future. Mr. Moderator, we need to be proactive rather than reactive. There are laws on the books, but are they enforced? The current laws, especially with regards to the fines imposed for non-compliance, need to be revised and strictly enforced. With this dual approach of education and enforcement, I am convinced that the number of scooter accidents will decrease. Mr. Moderator, I firmly believe that if persons were educated and the laws were strictly enforced, regarding the use of safety gear and adherence to the speed limit, the number of motorbike accidents would be greatly reduced. Thank you.
At this time, we're going to take 5 minutes of complete silence for the preparation of the rebuttals. I'm asking you, Mr. Timekeeper, to let us know when that 5 minutes is completed, starting now.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening again. My opponents mentioned the disturbing rates of scooters and motorbike accidents. But Mr. Moderator, would you call 3% of accidents disturbing? My opponents focus a lot on safety, mentioning riders do not wear helmets. Mr. Moderator, there is a solution to decrease these disturbing rates and make riders abide by the law. Introduce the driving school my colleague spoke about, and enforce the laws. Mr. Moderator, there are more stabbings than bike accidents. Should we ban knives? Accidents happen. What we need to focus on is enforcing the law and making sure our riders are educated about the bikes. I'm sure we wouldn't have to worry about these disturbing rates then. My opponent stated that scooters are to blame for... Mr. Moderator, we cannot blame the scooters or motorbikes when the riders are not educated and the laws are not enforced. We can only blame the riders if they don't know what they're doing. Thank you.
I now call on the proposition's first speaker, Ms. Jean Jeffers, to present this rebuttal.
Half-truths, misrepresentations, and outright fallacies. That is all my opponents have to offer. So many that I am almost brought to tears. Let's put aside these fairy tales. The first speaker of the opposition said that he has heard no calls for aircrafts being banned, even though hundreds have perished. And the second speaker of the opposition went on to talk about the so-called low accident rates of scooters. Let's look closely at the statistics and apply some logic. Obviously, the number of car accidents will be higher than the number of bike accidents, since four-wheeled vehicles far outnumber scooters and motorcycles on our roads. For example, according to the statistics gathered by the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, in 2013, there were 1,167 accidents involving four-wheeled vehicles and 47 accidents involving scooters and motorcycles. But the same number of fatalities was the same, one in each category. I pulled out my calculator and discovered that the rate of bike fatalities was 0.2%, while for the four-wheeled vehicles, it was 0.00084%. Clearly, the safety devices in cars and trucks make a big difference. The second speaker of the opposition said that in these hard economic times, should we not teach our young people sound financial principles? I say yes, and we will be able to do this by banning scooters. Scooters and motorbikes are cheaper in the short term, but the public pays the ultimate cost. The Virgin Islands community bears the burden, financial and other, in so many ways. Since scooters and motorbike riders are less likely to have comprehensive insurance, medical expenses are paid by government-funded healthcare. Since these vehicles make their riders more susceptible to traumatic brain injuries and other severe injuries, the victims end up using more of the hospital's critical resources. And sadly, since these accidents usually involve the young people of our society, we must struggle to find ways to heal the emotional scars of those left behind. Or else, we will be comforting one more parent who is robbed of the joy of seeing her child graduate from high school, from college, robbed by a scooter accident or a motorbike accident. The first speaker of the opposition stated that scooters are environmentally friendlier. As already stated, we know that these vehicles use less gas than cars, but the other harmful substances that they emit far outweigh the meager savings at the gas station. The second speaker said that we should educate scooter riders rather than ban the scooters. Let's examine this misdirection. Even after safe driving courses, drivers often feel as though they are professional, and then they begin to ignore everything they are taught. The mentalities of the target audience of these bikes won't make a difference. They rather impress others than take precaution. The deadly combination of a scooter and its rider, the perilous joining of a motorcycle and its driver, is tearing the very fabric of our society. Is the freedom and the adrenaline rush associated with scooters and motorcycles worth it? What are we waiting for? Scooters and motorcycles should be banned in the Virgin Islands. I thank you.
At this time, I'd like to ask the adjudicator for the best debating, the best speaker, Mr. Dennis Gill, to come up and give a brief critique of the speakers and announce the winner of the best speaker.
Good evening. I think probably the first thing we should do is to give a big hand to both teams. We are united in the view that this has been one of the better debates. The topic in itself is a topic which is contentious, and we found that significant research was in fact done by both teams. However, I'm just going to make some brief observations, which I hope will focus on both the strengths, weaknesses that will help the winning debate team and the debaters themselves to grow as public speakers. Both teams had very powerful attention getters. They came to the podium, they grabbed the audience's attention, and they used the diverse and very useful strategies. Very commendable. Time management was also commendable. Perhaps some speakers could have used up more of their time, but the issue of speakers going beyond the boundaries of time certainly demonstrated the discipline that is associated with the art of public speaking. There was good command of the material. When we speak of the art of public speaking, I always focus on these three Greek terms: logos, ethos, and pathos. Logos, how logical. Pathos has to do with stirring emotions in order to make a point, to get your audience to feel, to know, and to convince them through that particular means. And then, of course, ethos, the ethical dimension. Can we trust the sources? I want to make a few comments on the sources. There was a heavy reliance on newspaper articles, web pages, and I just want to make a suggestion that outside of the norm of coming up with .com, etc., that perhaps what we can try to do is to go to sources where you will have the name of a specific thinker, a reputable source that you can trust. Because we're living in a world where we're getting a lot of information, and we're teaching our young people to interrogate as against readily just absorb information. As one speaker said, half-truths, lies, and we need to be very careful. So what I would suggest is that there are other sources such as EBSCO-host, Justa, and there's something that I've been telling students about, that is you could simply, if you like to Google, you Google, but put a slash, and next to it write scholarly articles. And you will find a list of sources emerge from university websites, etc., that perhaps you can utilize. But again, I want to thank you for the efforts you put in terms of research. Poise, confidence, admirable. Both teams, great work. I want to say at this time, in terms of arriving at a best speaker, it is always a contentious issue, because we always ask the question, what makes a speaker a best speaker in the given circumstances? Well, we focused on content, we focused on delivery, and I must say, the delivery on both sides, the delivery was great. In the final analysis, the decision was unanimous, and we have determined that the first speaker of the proposition, G.N. Jeffers, is the best speaker.
At this time, as our Chief Adjudicator for Best Debating Team, Mrs. HAZEL BORELAND, to come and give a brief critique and to give us the decision regarding the winning team.
Good evening. I would like to begin by joining my colleague in congratulating our debaters tonight, because we felt unanimously that the presentations this evening were excellent. But like my fellow adjudicator, it's very important that we share some insights with you so that the winning team and all of our debaters can use them to hone their skills and be even better than they are already. I'll begin by some of the high points. What was very evident tonight was that a lot of preparation and hard work went into all of the debaters tonight. The debaters were all very well poised, well spoken, and able to present with openings that grabbed your audiences. So I have to really acknowledge that tonight and encourage those who worked with you that they did a very good job in preparing you and making sure that you represented your schools well. Job well done. Now, in terms of things that we picked up on that the winning team, and I'm not going to tell you who it is as yet, of course, that the winning team did very well. One of the things that the winning team did very well was to be able to marshal the material that they were presented with. They were able to come forward and present arguments that were exceptionally logical, very well structured. They were able to flow from their introductions into the topics, and the team member was also able to wrap up the presentation that their predecessor started with and flow it right into their presentation. That shows great teamwork and collaboration, and that is to be applauded. And one of the things that tends to push one debate team over the edge and set it apart from the other debate team is your ability to not just make your prepared presentation, which takes a lot of work, but it takes a very special skill to give an excellent rebuttal. And the winning team did that tonight because an excellent rebuttal is one where you have honed the skill of listening, the skill of being able to listen, marshal it, and turn it back on your opponent on your feet. And that takes very hard work and skill. And that's what the winning team did tonight. Because the distinction between that team and the other team was the excellent use of their time and being able to recall all of the various points raised by their opponents. Recall those points, take them, and find answers that are effective in rebutting those points. And for those reasons, I cannot resist it now. I'm going to indicate who is the winning team now. And the winning team for tonight's debate, coming in at 425 points. And I think I need to indicate what those points are made up of. I've always wanted to do this. The first criteria for the team debate is the soundness of points. For that, each speaker received 35 points. The next criteria, and this is for the prepared presentation, was logical development. For that, the maximum amount of points award would have been 20. Audibility and clarity was 15 points per speaker, maximum. Posture and personality, 15 points maximum. Command of the material, 15 points maximum. And then for the rebuttal, we had things like creativity, and being able to recall the points and also being able to marshal the information. And as I've said, the winning team out of those criteria came in at 425 points. And tonight I'd like to present the winning team for the debate this evening is Elmer Stout High School. Now that I've given all of the positives tonight, it will be remiss of me if I left and not left you with some of the things that we need to work on. One of the things that, as my friend just mentioned, the use of sources. It is important that we stretch our horizons in that area because we found that there was a little too much reliance on casual sources, like the electronic media and so forth. We need to stretch our horizons a bit. But in that same vein, we were actually impressed that some persons use local sources like the police and some businesses. That shows a bit of creativity of thought. And one other point that's really important and we noticed is it is as important to stay in time as it is to not underutilize your time. Because when you underuse your time, you miss a critical opportunity to develop the key points that you need to push your team over the edge. So we just want to end with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hazel Ann Boland, for your critique and for declaring the winner.
A pleasant good evening to everyone. It is my pleasure tonight on behalf of the organizers to express my profound appreciation to the entities and individuals that have contributed to the success of this evening's inter-secondary school semi-final debates. They are the Minister of Education and Culture, the Honorable Myron V. Walwyn, Education Officer Mrs. Connie George, Principal of the Claudia Creaky Educational Center, Mr. John Williamson, Moderator, Mr. Smith, Chairperson, Mrs. Nadia James Harris, the adjudicators, auditors, timekeeper, technical assistants, GIS, teachers who work assiduously to prepare students, parents for your support, students for your thorough, competitive, stimulating presentations, and you, the wonderful audience, the Sir Rupert Barcliffe Hall Committee, the sponsors, the Ministry of Education, the Department of Education, and Belham Trust BVI Limited, the faithful supporters, Toastmasters Club, staff of the Department of Education, and finally, but certainly not least, Ms. Colleen Penn. Thank you so much for your participation and your help. Thank you.